We are walking down the road here in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. We're going to talk about the unsolved murder of Matthew John Owen, a man who definitely lived life on his own terms. He was born in this world with nothing, and he damn sure is going to leave with nothing. I'm going to tell you the quick story of how he came to be, what that saying that I just said meant, and the curious nature of how he lived his golden years, the rest of his days, and the seedy lifestyle that many people out there didn't know that this 90-year-old man lived. Without further ado, let's get right into this story. Oftentimes, I never really think about what I'm going to do with myself when I start getting older, when I retire, when I get into the golden years. I never think that far ahead. I'd be lucky if I were able to live anywhere near as many years as Matthew John Owen has lived. Now, he went by the name John for short, but he also went by another name, and that name was Daddy. Yeah, this guy, John, was, I guess some people would call a PIMP or something like that. So a little bit of a background about John. So he moved here to Cedar Rapids, I believe in 2012. Originally, he had been married for about 52 years to this lovely woman right here. Her name is Ruth. And as you get older, things don't work the same as they did when you were 20 or 30 or 40 or even 50. And John's noticing that she's not pulling her weight around the house. Things are falling apart, she's falling apart, and he doesn't really want any part of that. So he does whatever any loving husband would do, and that is dump her off at the old folks' home. Yeah, he wasn't about to start cleaning up after her and all of that jive. So she is in a nursing home, and she unfortunately passes away within about 6 months of her getting there. Now, the battle between her estate and his estate and a certain joint bank account that had about $150,000, that years-long battle would slowly start to take place because, like I said, they had a joint bank account, and that's how much money was in that account. And after he shipped her off to the old folks' home, he quickly took her name off of it and made it to where only he and his son had access to it. Now, he moves to Cedar Rapids, and he quickly buys a house that costs around $250,000. Cash, of course. So he buys this home. Now, what does a 90-year-old man do for fun when he, even though he's 90, he still feels like he's 60 or what have you? Well, you go to Woody's Gentleman Club. This was where John, or Daddy, or whatever he would tell the young strippers here at this club, he would tell them to call him that, amongst many things. Now, John would often come to this club, and he was quite popular. Of course, the reason why is because you're spending a lot of money on a lot of girls. Now, he loved the girlies. I mean, he loved the girlies, especially when they were young. Now, you could hang out with John if you wanted, but he didn't like the old battle axes. I mean, he just dropped one off at the nursing home. He doesn't want to deal with another one. So if you were creaking around the age of 23 or so, that you might as well take that old heifer out back of the barn and put two right in the back of its head, because he preferred the teeny boppers, or as he would call them, his sugar babies, or he would call them his chickies. And in this place, some girls working, trying to go through school, trying to make their way in life, and some just come here for fast cash. And he would come here often, hey, John, hey, Daddy, whatever you want to call him. And he would quickly grow a reputation at this strip club, a good one of him spending a lot of money, him being very flashy, him being a real life Hugh Hefner. He would wear a lot of jewelry, a lot of gold on his hands, nice watches. And I bet you he would come here and he couldn't wait for this place to open up so he could visit, as he called them, his chickies. And sometimes when John would come to this strip club, when he would leave and go home, some of his chickies would go home with him. Now, depending on who you ask, no funny business, no. They would just go to his home to take care of his house, clean up his house, help with certain chores, and sometimes they would sleep in the same bed. Now, of course, no sex. These women here, they are not having sex with a 90-year-old man. Can you imagine an 18-year-old girl? They're not going to have sex with a 90-year-old. Well, at least they're not going to admit that they're doing it. And sometimes when they would sleep in his bed, he would say, like, listen, I could get you a boob job. I could get you braces, which he did to a certain girl that used to work here by the name of Brittany Creamer. I kid you not. That's what I read online. That's what her name was. I'm not making any puns up or anything like that. And one Brittany Creamer, he bought her, he gave her money for like tattoos, money for clothes. He would buy her phones, braces, like I said, and he even offered this woman a boob job. Now, I don't know if Brittany Creamer took the offer for the boob job. I'm sure she would make more money if she got it done or whatever. But she was one of his favorites. Now, I don't know anything about Miss Creamer's past, but when you start involving yourself with people who live a seedy lifestyle, you're really inviting trouble literally into your own home. Now we're going to fast forward to January of 2013. Now, by this time, John has lived in the area now for, I want to say, about 2.5 months, and the police of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, have grown to know John, not for any good reasons. It's because they've had several calls for service to his residence, which is right up the street from where we're at right now. And the reason why they've had calls to service is because he's called the police to report several burglaries, several thefts. Somebody is stealing money out of his account. And you got a lot of these young 18, 20-year-old strippers, none over than 22, please, keep them under 22 for sure, being dropped off by their boyfriends. So you have some seedy characters in the neighborhood, which is, it's a pretty nice middle-class neighborhood. And residents are concerned. You got a 90-year-old man who's being visited by 18 or 20-year-old girls. So on the evening of January 18th, 2000, don't worry, boys, I'm almost done. On the evening of January 18, 2013, an unidentified stripper was at this residence. Now, at this time, one of his little chickies, her name was Katie Pencil, 23 years of age. Now, I don't know what's up with these names. I don't know if the newspaper is making up fictitious names to protect the identity of these cookies or goodies or whatever you call them. And I don't want to know why they call her Katie Pencil. Anyways, sometimes things are left better unsaid. So he's telling her about this girl, Katie, that stole a bunch of money from him. As a matter of fact, she stole about $16,000 writing bad checks out of his account. And what do you do when you're 90 years old and you're not making any more money and somebody steals $16,000 out of your account? Well, you call the police on them and then offer to give them $5,000 for an attorney to defend themselves from the charge of stealing money from you, and you give them the money. So as you can see what kind of character this guy is. So on that evening, an unidentified stripper and her 2-year-old child are spending the night at his home, which is right up the street from here. And he gets a phone call. So he's talking to this person, blah, 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 yada, yada. And he says, hey, you got to go. And she's like, well, why? I thought we were going to hang out and sleep together in your bed. And you were going to try to touch me while I smack your hand away from you. And he says, nah, somebody called me. They have some information on some jewelry that was stolen from me. So somebody's going to come over here and bring the jewelry. And I told them I'd give them, $500 for a reward. She says, okay, so he calls her a cab, or she leaves in her car, whatever. And that night, one of these neighbors here comes out of this home, their home. And as you can see, this neighbor is pretty quiet. And they notice that his door is open. And it's at nighttime, and he is 90, and they're concerned because of all the riffraff and the nonsense that this guy's kind of brought to the neighborhood. So they call the police. So Cedar Rapids PD comes right down the street right here, and they pull up to 107 Gaslight Court, right in front of that house, right in front of you. And they step inside the residence, and of course they find one Matthew John Owen bludgeoned to death right in his own home. A murder took place in this very neighborhood, very, very quiet neighborhood. And to this day, his murder is unsolved. And that is the story on how a real life Hugh Hefner, a true in life sugar daddy, that is how he met his demise, at the hands of some nefarious cretin. Obviously, he was hanging out with those 2-bit strippers, and one of their friends, boyfriends, or whoever decided that this 90-year-old man would be a great lick or come up. He oftentimes bragged about how much money he had, about how much jewelry he had. At that strip club back over there, all the time he would brag about what he had. And strippers have big ears, kind of like me, and they hear a lot of things. And when they heard how much money that he possibly had, maybe they were thinking, oh, he's got a bunch of cash back there, and they wanted a piece of it. And because of him living such a braggadocious lifestyle at the age of 90, he sadly lost his life. Now, that statement that I said earlier on being born into this world with nothing and leaving with nothing, well, that's exactly what he told somebody. So in my estimation, you got a 90-year-old man who has a few $100,000 to spend to make his life, the last years of his life, as comfortable as he wants. And he's a lively character. And that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to just spend all his money on 18-year-old strippers. I know. I agree with you. You too. Got a lot of dogs around here. Anyways, if anybody has any information on the unsolved murder of Matthew John Owen, please contact the Cedar Rapids Police Department, 319-286-5400. 319-286-5400. Lamont at large. I'm signing off. Peace out. Yeah, what's up? Yeah, you want to play, don't you? He's a nice boy.